And as usual, we discuss a certain aspect of the Pasha of the week. But the central theme of the Pasha, of this discussion, is not to talk about the Pasha, but to talk about ourselves. That's really the aim of it. There's a pasuk, Zois HaTorah, this is the Torah, Odom ki yomus bo'ehel. Goes on to talk about Odom, about the human being. So, it is explained that the proximity, by the way, any words, anyone doesn't understand what's being said, and the words especially, please stop me, and so I'll explain. I speak as the words come, but sometimes you use words that people are not familiar with, so please make sure that you know that there's no objection, you can stop me anytime. Says Torah Odom, that what is the Torah? Torah is Odom, is the human being. The human being, the Yid, the Jew, is the reflection of the Torah. Everything that's in the Torah is contained in the Jew, and everything that is in the Jew is reflected in the Torah. So that everything that we learn in the Torah, we learn the Torah, and it's like an academic learning, but then ultimately the principle is we have to try and find ourselves in the Torah, in what we have learned. Torah is not an academic study where you study something and it has nothing to do with you, couldn't care less whether it's one way or another way. Just know a piece of information. We learned in the class on Monday, we had a class that we learned a mimer, a small group. And I explained a certain point which I want to repeat here. There is Chochmah Bina V'Das. Anybody knows Chabad is Chochmah Bina V'Das, which means wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. These are three stages in the development, in intellectual development. The ultimate development of the intellectual process is what's called das, knowledge. So, normally when you say, I know, knowledge, what does I know mean? I study it and I understand it, and now I know it. And what is the statement, I know it? It means that I'm prepared to answer, to participate in a test. You can give me a written test, an oral test, and I'll be able to give you all the answers to the question. Once I'm able to do that, then that means I know it, right? I can pass this test. That's the way things work in academics. But in Torah, it works differently. In Torah, Das means that you can pass the test of life, not the written test in school. But at life, you're facing the life in the world, you can pass the test of life. Everything that's thrown at you in the world, you can deal with it, you can handle it, and it won't divert you, won't confuse you, won't divert your path in life. That's called knowledge. That's.
The virtues push you away?
I'm sorry?
The virtues push you away?
Yeah. Turn you in a different direction.
Oh, the virtue. Okay. You're
right. And this knowledge is not merely that I know this is wrong and I'm constantly fighting and and I'm constantly being challenged. The das element in Torah is the most important element. This is where we find ourselves in the Torah. We say, this which the Torah says, I personally agree with it. I personally feel the truth of it. Then it becomes your own truth. And then you can really face the challenge of life. You don't have to turn to the book. Imagine a soldier goes to an academy, the military academy, and he's trained as a soldier, and then he's sent to the front, and then there's a certain situation. So he tells the enemy, he says, wait a second, I have to go back to the book and see what I'm supposed to do in this situation. You can imagine how well he's going to survive this. Doesn't work. He has to have been trained to such a degree that it's spontaneous. He feels the strength and he knows what he's doing. The Pasha is called Pasha's Pinchass. And it's called by Pinchass. The Pinchass was a very special person. He was a grandson of Aaron HaKohen. And he has gone through the challenge of life in a situation that others greater than him couldn't find their way how to deal with the situation. And he was able to relate to it and find a way and to respond correctly to this situation, to a very grave situation. We'll discuss it. And as a result of that, he was granted by God very special privileges that no other person has ever been granted in such a direct way. What I want to discuss is the situation that Pinchass faced and how he dealt with it. Where did he find the strength to deal with it? And the special reward that he got for it, how it is commensurate, how it is reflective of the challenge that he went through. Okay, it's clear so far. We're speaking the same language. The situation that Pinchass was faced with was a very unusual situation and very difficult situation to deal with. And in order to understand it, I want to give you another situation that's similar to it, but we'll understand it more readily. And then we'll transfer back to the Pinchass situation. You all know about the Mabul. The Mabul, the flood. Hashem brought a flood that flooded the whole world, essentially. Except there are certain portions that were not, but basically the world was flooded. The entire human population was wiped out. The entire population of the world was wiped out, except that which was saved in Noah's ark. And the Torah describes what precipitated, what brought on this flood, this kind of a punishment. It's extremely severe, wiping out the whole world. And God himself, who created it, he wiped it out. It's his handiwork. And Torah says, God says to Noah, that the world was full of chomos. Chomos means simply a decadent, a destroyed level of behavior from man to man. It was not just an affront to God. They meant an chomos. There's absolutely no respect for human life and for human property. Chomos means robbery. It was all civility at all levels has gone by the wayside, has been lost. And because of that, God went and destroyed the world. So there is a classic question here. We have a Torah, and the Torah has 613 different mitzvot, different precepts, commands. And the Torah prescribes, the importance of doing all of these commands, and also assigns a specific and a particular consequence or punishment that comes along with transgression of this command. If one robs a property from another person, the Torah says, what do we do? Do we kill him? No, God forbid. He has to pay up, return the robbed article, and depending on the circumstance, he may have to bring a korban, a sacrifice, an offering in the Beis Hamikdash or not. But that's it. And he has to repent and ask for forgiveness, both from God and from the person that he had offended, and then he's back into society. That's robbery. And there are, as I said, 613 different mitzvahs, and each one has a precise punishment, consequence that comes along with it in order to find atonement for it. There are a few that actually call for what's called capital punishment. But robbery and civility, lack of civility, is not one of them. Huh? Civil, behaving civilly one to the other. Respect for the human being, respect for life. So the Rebbe asked this question. He says, how is this compensatory? What kind of punishment was this mabul? And the Rebbe explains that the mabul was not in the form of a punishment. Punishment has to be compensated, has to be balanced to the crime. Sometimes there is a crime that goes beyond being a crime. A crime normally means that you have a human being, but he transgressed. So, but after he transgressed, after that he committed this crime, there's still a human being left behind. He has certain human elements in him. During the mabul period, what happened was, it was not that people committed crime. People that they have completely destroyed the fabric of the world. The world couldn't continue to exist this way. The world has to have some order. There was absolutely none of it. None of it. Even animals behaved unnaturally. Even animals. This was the whole world was decayed. Therefore, God said, this is something which is incurable. It's like a decayed tree, a decayed piece of wood. There's nothing left. Nothing left to salvage. And this is why it was completely wiped away. And a new world was created. Virtually a new world. Because it was a very small group of people that remained. Actually, 4 people. 4 couples. And this is it. A new world was built from these 4 couples. The development of society subsequent after the flood actually was only from 3, because Noach himself didn't have any more children after that. And that's why in the world, there are actually three different denominations, three different genders in human beings, three different kinds. It's the same Chom and Yofis. So that this explains to us that there is such a thing, there is a crime that is beyond a crime. It's not punishable, but it's beyond being punishable, beyond punishment. There's nothing left. So this is a more difficult situation to deal with than a normal crime where you have a crime and you have a specific punishment. And after that you punish for this crime and you repent, you get atonement, you get forgiveness, and you come back and you become and you get rehabilitated. At least the soul gets rehabilitated. But this was not salvageable. The situation that Pinchass faced was to a great measure similar to this. Chutzpah, right?
Is that what they call it nowadays?
What happened there was because of Bilam's perverted ways, he orchestrated, to his advice, it was orchestrated that Eden were enticed to have relations with Goyish women. Now this is a transgression. This is an aveira. It's not permissible to do that. But this is a transgression that has the element of the situation at the time of the Mabul. Because in essence, on the face of it, there is no prescribed punishment for it in the Torah. It's a crime. It's an aveira. It's impure. It's dragging Jewish holiness into the impure world, but there is no prescribed punishment for it. It's not like adultery. There is no prescribed punishment. On the other hand, it's worse than a crime. It's such a crime that doesn't even allow for that term of crime. Because the Rambam explains a very interesting, powerful statement. Rambam says, if somebody has a forbidden relations and he has a child that's what's called a mamzer, a possible child, a child who is not allowed to intermarry into the Jewish society. It's a possible child. It's one of the most tragic things that can happen. So, nevertheless, it is considered his child. And in a certain sense, he has fulfilled his obligation to bring children into the world. It's one of the primary obligations. Everybody has an obligation to get married and bring children to the world. And this is, okay, there's something lacking there, but nevertheless, he's still part of the Jewish people. If somebody has relations with a non-Jew, then that child is being torn out of the Jewish people. That is the worst that Rambam says that can happen. Even though from a criminal perspective, it is something which does not have that type of a prescribed punishment. But in terms of the effect of it, it's the deepest thing that can happen. It takes a piece of Jewish force, of Jewish strength, of the Jewish neshama, and throws it right tears it out of the Jewish people. A mamzer is called Goy, that's what I'm saying. A mamzer is Jewish. I'm sorry?
In this case, the child
It's not Jewish. He's not a mamzer. It's an amazing thing. He's not a mamzer. He's not Jewish. And Rambam explains that this is the worst that one can do, because it takes what's called the koyach Yehudi, a Jewish koyach that belongs to the Jewish fold, and he takes it away, steals it away from the Jewish people. So this is the type of crime that is, as I said, similar to that what we with the experience of the flood. Because technically, it's a manageable crime, so to speak. It's punishment. There's not even a prescribed punishment for it. On the other hand, it destroys the entire Jewish people. It completely destroys the people. It takes something that's Jewish and takes it out from the Jewish folk. And this is what happened over there with Pinchass. To find a way to react to this type of situation. So all the great sages who were at the time, including Moshe Rabbeinu himself, was sitting there. And looking for, what do you do? There's no punishment. There's no prescribed punishment. What do you do? This is something which can only occur, which can only be reacted to, not from the prescribed book, from the prescribed definitive laws of the Torah. This is what we said before, Torah Odo. The human being contains the Torah in his heart, in his neshama. This is something which demands a direct response from the neshama, from the human being himself. The Torah says, I don't have an answer to it. The answer to it comes from the soul of the human being. This is something which if you are a kanoi, if you stand up for the honor for the honor of the Jewish people, for the honor of God, then you have the ability to deal with it. But that's where it's coming. If you go to the Beis Din and say, what should I do? Can I do this? The Beis Din will say no. They can't do it. This is something which comes directly from the Jewish soul. It comes from the soul that recognizes the godly presence and the honor of the godly presence. And to preserve the honor of the godly presence, he goes, and that's what Pinchass did. He completely disregarded his own safety. It's out of the question. He was exposed to a very dangerous situation. I don't know if you learned and understood what happened was there. He was exposed to revenge by all the people from that person that he had taken revenge of when he killed. And as a matter of fact, he was sitting together with Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe didn't react, didn't say what he should do. Where is this little Pinchass? Come with this audacity to get up and do it on his own. And the answer is, the real truth of Torah, the real truth of God, is to be found in the Jewish heart. And I want to discuss this. What was unique about Pinchass, that he was able to relate to it and find it. Clearly, Moshe Rabbeinu had a Jewish heart par excellence, a Jewish mind par excellence, and including Aaron HaKohen and Elazar, Pinchass's father. I mean, they were all the pillars of the world, not the pillars of the generation. These are the pillars of the world. We're all standing and held up by on their palms. And yet, there was something unique in Pinchass' way of doing things, in Pinchass' approach, that he was able to find the answer and the strength, and I said the audacity to go and do it. It's explained in Hasidus that our function, our avodah, our mode of action, and the process of learning and incorporating what we are learning entails two things. There are two things. As we learned and we discussed previously, that at a time of Matan Torah, maybe we should open some air movement. Huh? You agree with that? Okay, so who is going to be Pinchass to do it? Yes.
Two Pinchass. Doing one thing. And Yaakov and Pinchass.
What? This one is loud? I'll try to speak louder, but we can't. I'd rather speak louder than speak to the wall. Okay.
Wow.
What? You feel it rain? Okay. We discussed, if you don't hear me, please tell me. I can put on a microphone. Can you hear? Huh? I can hear. You can hear, right? Okay. There is when the Torah was given, we explained then that the giving of the Torah consists of two fundamental changes in the world. One is that which was above, that which was higher than world, was permitted to descend down into the world. And the other is that which is worldly was permitted to ascend, to be raised up to a higher level. Prior to Matan Torah, prior to that was not within the ability, within the world. That which was above stayed above, that which was below stayed below. You could not really transform and change the world on a fundamental level. You can lead a very decent life because you know what it should be, but the world will remain what it is. After Matan Torah, this underwent a very fundamental change. And we explained then that which came down from above came down because this is God's gift, that came down in full at that moment. But that which remains to be elevated, that which remains to be worked on from the world level, that is a gradual and a long-term process. And as a matter of fact, we are still in the middle of it. Not in the middle, hopefully. We're towards the end of it, but we're still involved in it. What does this mean? There's the godly perspective, the godly truth in the world. The godly truth of the world is that the world exists exclusively by the fact that God continually creates it and gives it its spirit. No different than the fact that a human being, the human body, the body exists, but everybody knows the body exists only because there's a soul in it. The instant that the soul departs, the body instantaneously begins to disintegrate. It cannot exist a moment on its own. Disintegrate, fall apart, fall back to its elements, to its chemicals, goes back to earth. Here is a living human being, and the body was fully alive. And you would think, hey, look at this, he's able to understand in his brain is so sensitive, has such life, he's able to understand. His heart feels. His hands are so talented. All of these qualities, they're not part of the body. They are the soul that's acting in the body. The body has nothing, no ability of its own, zero. And zero is a correct description of it. If you know that in mathematics, zero is the first position. Zero is also a value. It's a value of zero. The zero value of the body is that it is completely subservient to the soul. If the body begins to kind of debate and fight the soul, then it loses. Unfortunately, there are such sicknesses where the body fights against itself. God forbid. This is a perversion. This is an anomaly. So the body has the value of zero. It is completely subservient, lets the soul do with it whatever the soul wants to do, and then the body is alive. The minute the body starts saying, wait a second, I don't know if I like what you're doing, there's no more body. There's nothing to talk about. Exactly the same way is the reality of the world. The world is maintained by a soul, which is the spirit of the world. There's a soul. The sun rises and the sun sets, and there are 4 seasons, and there's day and night, and there's a whole life cycle of the world. This is all not a cycle that is maintained on the worldly, on the physical level. It is no different than the life cycle of a human being. He wakes up, he goes to sleep. All that is part of his soul, spirit of the soul. However, be that as it is, even though this is the actual truth, nevertheless, as we started saying, the world does not instantaneously recognize it. And it is a physical world. That is also true in the human being. Human being is, as we said, the body is completely subservient to the soul, right? And yet, in order for a human being to understand something that the soul fully understands, the soul knows it all. In order for it to be understood, in the sake that the soul is in the body, a human being, which is soul and body together, one has to labor very hard. It doesn't come easy. He has to work very, very hard. He has to work very hard, even though the body is subservient to the soul, but he has to really work very hard to allow that he should understand in his physical experience that which is true to the soul. A truth that only the soul recognizes. This is what all learning is all about. This is about learning, especially learning of Torah. But all learning. Learning means to understand how does the soul relate to this. Because as far as the body is concerned, couldn't care less. We even explained one time, I don't want to go there right now, it's a different topic, but we even explained that 1 and 1 equals to 2, right? Everybody knows that? Any dispute on that? 1 and 1 equals to 2, right? The real truth, from the body's perspective, 1 and 1 equals to 1 and 1. Doesn't equal to 2. It equals to 2 because the soul recognizes the correlationship. This is a spiritual thing. This is not a physical thing. 1 and 1 doesn't change, doesn't become 2 all of a sudden. They remain 1 and 1. This is all because this is why everything takes training. Everything has to be directed, has to be learned. Oh, that's what you mean. And then you have to allow yourself to understand and to have a soul sense within your physical body.
If you equal 1 and 1 together,
how do they come together? 1 and 1 don't come together physically.
But it's not expression, it's the way of...
That expression, it comes from the soul, not from the body. As I said, I really don't want to go there for great detail, but we discussed it one time and discussed it multiple times. But I'm sure you never thought of it. But I'm telling you, if you really analyze it conclusively, you will see that from a physical perspective, 1 and 1 equals 1 and 1. That's all. It becomes 2 only because we perceive a unity in the world. Therefore, there is such thing as unity. But if everything is individual, as they are, they remain 1 and 1. So that there is this which the soul understands and knows, and the soul knows really the absolute truth. But then that has to be also imbued, affected on the bodily level, so that physically we can also understand it. That requires a lot of labor. That requires a lot of work. In order to elevate the body, that the body should be sensitive to the thoughts and to the ideas of the soul. This is where labor comes in, where effort and toil comes in. It's explained in Hasidus and in Kabbalah's Sfarim that Moshe and Pinchass, Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Torah down from above, from God. And the expression in the expression about Moshe is Moshe Kibel Torah Misina. He received the Torah. Moshe received the Torah just the way it was given to him. Moshe was actually above the world. And he was able to receive the Torah just the way it is. Pinchass, on the other hand, just to give us a little broader perspective, it says, the Gemara says, Pinchass ze Eliyahu. Pinchass hu Eliyahu. That's why the Haftorah of today's Pasha, is also about Eliyahu, about Yirmiyahu actually. Very similar, not Eliyahu, Yirmiyahu. And there's similarity between Pinchass and Eliyahu as well. In the similarity, what is the meaning of Eliyahu? there are similarities between the challenge that Eliyahu faced and the challenges that Pinchass faced. Pinchass faced, as we explained, the challenge that he faced. Eliyahu, he faced the challenges that even were completely absorbed in Avodah Zorah, in the Baal. And Eliyahu had to turn away from Avodah Zorah, to the extent that Eliyahu had to do something which is actually against the Torah. He had to break a korban outside of the Beis Hamikdash, which is normally not permitted. What it says ultimately about Eliyahu, I want to come straight to the point. What it says ultimately about Eliyahu is, we all know that Eliyahu became a malach, right? Everybody knows Eliyahu became a malach. In Tanakh is described, Elisha was Eliyahu's Talmud, and he followed around Eliyahu. He took over the mantle. He became the Novi after Eliyahu. And he describes in Tanakh what he saw, how Eliyahu simply ascended up into the sky. Eliyahu ascended up in the sky. In other words, not like normally the neshama separates from the body, because the neshama can ascend, but the body has to remain here. Eliyahu ascended to Gan Eden, soul and body, together. What does this mean? This means that Eliyahu had transformed, has purified his body to the extent that it became like the soul. This was the special thing of Eliyahu. He did not only bring the soul down into the he actually elevated the body to the point where the body became at the level and the purity of the soul. So when the soul ascended, the body ascended with it.
So he never died?
He never died. There's never died. Eliyahu ascended. This is the only person who ascended soul and body into Gan Eden. It's described in Tanakh. In other words, the difference between Pinchass and Moshe, or Eliyahu and Moshe, is that Moshe is the one who brought things down from above, and Eliyahu was the one who actually transformed and worked bottom up, from the world upwards. He worked with himself. He worked to purify his body to the point where the body became like the soul. Please understand what the significance of this is and what we started speaking about. It is not within our reach to do this. Okay? Anybody here who wants to attempt everything that is mentioned over here should know that please don't attempt that. But it is necessary for us to understand the principle. So is HaTorah Odom. Everything that is in Torah is true in the human being. The human being has all the abilities that even his body should be able to relate and to unite with Torah, not only his soul, to the extent possible. And this is where our task is. This is what our task is. When we find, I mentioned it many times in the past, when you open up a Chumash, a Mishnayos, a Gemara, or a Maimar Chassidus, or Tanya, whatever it is, and we don't understand, we should not get disappointed. We should know one thing. Our soul understands it, guaranteed. And the soul is really in great pain. Why? The body is not accepting that teaching. And it wishes and it prays and it hopes that the person will realize. If he does not understand, it's not because it's not understandable to his soul. It's because he needs to refine his brain, refine his heart, refine his body, so that he will be able to accept and to relate to this particular aspect of Torah. Because Zois HaTorah Odo. The entire Torah is reflected in the human being. There's nothing in the Torah that a human being cannot relate to in the proper way. Some things he can relate with his intellect, understand. Some things he relates with his heart. Some things he relates with Mesiras Nefesh, with his whole soul. But everything he can relate. Even to the point where when Pinchass saw this, what happened, he knew what to do. Nobody else knew what to do. Because he had purified his body to the point where he knew directly what to do. It's not a question of description from the Torah. It's beyond that. So this brings us straight to the point which we said, that we are talking about the Pasha of the week, we're talking about Pinchass, and about Moshe, and about Eliyahu, but actually we're talking about ourselves. It is said, and those who learn Tanya, it doesn't say outright, but it says that the Neshama is actually administered an oath, a shvuah, before he comes down.
Yes.
And actually, it says that the Neshama, just prior to emerging into the world, learns the entire Torah. A Malach comes and teaches the Neshama the entire Torah, which is the Neshama already associated with the body, except not the body as it is, an independent, a separate thing in the world, lives on its own. It's the body when the body inside the womb is really one thing with the Neshama. Doesn't have its own desires whatsoever. And at that moment it learns the entire Torah. And then afterwards, at the moment of birth, he is caused to forget the entire Torah. But this forgetting the entire Torah does not mean that the whole experience of having learned it is wiped away. It's not wiped away. The experience is still there. This has had a profound effect on his body, so that if we labor with it, we can elevate, we can purify our body. And it's important to understand that every challenge that we face, and I said das means that we can face the challenge of life. Every challenge that we face, we are provided with the means to be able to face it. The entire Torah is ours, and is vested in our soul, and invested in our heart and mind. Except, why does the Malach come and make him forget? You learned the whole Torah, give it to him, let him have it. Why take it away? And the simple answer is, and everybody will understand this, that which you come with from the womb does not have any effect on the world. Our task, our mission in this life is precisely this, to transform and affect the world. To reveal and to show that the physical world can also be elevated and brought to darkness. That is in fact our task. And the only way that can be accomplished is when it is done bottom up. When you go to the body and you start dealing with the body, with the physical world, and you recognize that really the physical world is a non-entity, has no significance, but for the Torah, for the godly spark that's in it. That's our accomplishment. And it doesn't come easy. And the reason it doesn't come easy because we have to accomplish this. We have to break it through and reveal it. then it becomes knowledge. Just as everybody can relate to this, just as wealth, money, everybody appreciates money. Anybody here doesn't care about money? No. Okay, nobody minds. Everybody appreciates money. Money that comes to a person without having gone through the process of obtaining it, he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't know how to deal with it, has no appreciation of its value. As a matter of fact, if he has an abundance of that, it will ruin his life. It's an amazing thing, but that's the fact of it. Unless he has a mentor who's going to control him and he's going to let him control him, it's going to ruin his life. Because he has the biggest gift, the biggest power in the world, and doesn't know what he has no beginning to appreciate. The same thing, knowledge, but this is more significant. Knowledge that a person has without having acquired the knowledge, without having gone through the process of learning it, of laboring for it. It's just something that flew into his mind, is not knowledge. It's detrimental to his health, or to his spiritual health. He doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't really understand it. He knows it, doesn't really understand it. This is why there is this process of labor. But it's important to understand the process of labor is for our benefit. The process of labor is to make it meaningful to us. And we are provided with all the elements necessary to fully, ultimately understand it and appreciate it and bring it all the way to the level of das, that this becomes us and we can face the whole world, our life with it. And we will, when we face anything in the world, we will be able to go with it just like Pinchass was able to face anything. This is the message from the Pasha of Pinchass. Maybe this should help each one of us, that we should understand this message, not be swayed, not be disappointed when we learn and it's difficult, or we learn and I can't relate to it, and it's not interesting, and I'm bored. All of that is meant only for one purpose, so that when you get through it and get over with it, then it will be a real power, a real valuable power. And if it comes easily, then you haven't really absorbed it. And when you're faced and challenged in life, you won't know what to do with it. So we should, this is the bracha that we always say, we should all be successful in this effort. And every one of us should utilize the God-given blessed capabilities that each one of us has. This is a godly gift. The intellect that Hashem gave us is a godly gift. And we have to know how to utilize it, how to use it. We have to understand that this is a sensitivity to truth that no one else has. This is a godly gift. And we must not have to sort of forfeit it. Not forfeit it.
Give up.
Misuse it and lose it for nothing. Give it up, right? Give it up for no reason at all.
Okay.
The Rebbe once gave this example. You know, in Yiddish, there is a word called pearl. Pearl means pearls, and also when you put certain type of grains into the soup, it's also called pearl. So he says, I promise you, you're going to have petals. He says, why do I need petal? I need petal in the soup. What's petal for? pedal is worth millions of dollars. No, but that's something immediate. I'm testing it. Don't forfeit the pedal for the pedals in the soup. Anything in the world that's immediately satisfying is pedal in the soup. Anything that requires labor is pearls. Please seek the real pearl, the real thing. That's the source of blessing. We should all be successful and be blessed.
Amen.